Hello, and welcome to Young Global Leaders, where we get the chance to hear from young people hailing from all around the world, sharing about themselves, their accomplishments, and their vision for a better world. Recently, I had the privilege of leading a group of about 100 young people from over 40 countries to 7 global regions on an 8-month global gap year program. Most of them had just graduated from high school, though we also had a few older students. During our 8+ months together, the students formed a deeply loving and supportive community. Anyone could see that they had built something unique and inspiring. Through my eyes as a teacher, coach, and global leadership consultant, what I saw was unlike anything I'd seen before. When the program ended, I desperately wanted to keep in touch with these students and to share their example with the world. So I started the Young Global Leaders podcast. Today we hear from Juliana Bakhtsizina. Juliana Bakhtsizina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start just by asking you where you're joining us from today.
I'm actually joining from Warsaw, Poland, where it's currently minus 13 degrees outside.
Oh gosh, okay. Let me do a quick conversion for our Fahrenheit inclined listeners. Do a little math. That's 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, that's really, really, really cold. Oh, okay. But you're staying warm?
Yes, luckily. But it is really hard to manage the cold, especially in the city. Yeah.
Well, I hope it gets warmer soon. What are you up to in Warsaw?
Yeah, I'm actually staying here with my family for the Christmas break, but I'm based here most of the time while I'm not in Brussels, where I'm based for most of the time because of my work.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about your work a little bit later. For now, I want to ask you the same question that I ask all of the guests on this podcast, which is what makes you you?
It's a really simple question, and I've given it a little bit of thought. And I think the best way I can answer to it is just what makes me me is, oh gosh. I just have to really think about it. It's a very meta question, but I think what makes me me is a lot of don't want to praise myself, but just I think a lot of empathy is and putting effort into what I do, and I think that whatever I do and whatever I've done in the past and my journey with Beret as well has been marked by a deepening empathy and a lot of effort, both physically and mentally, and in my learning and my work and whatever I do.
Well, if I can jump in for a moment, first of all, I'll just say that very much resonates with my experience of you as well as a very empathetic human. I have also experienced you as an insatiably curious human as well. Does that resonate with you?
I think that's why every single Beret scholar or traveler, that's definitely a trait of character that all of us have, and myself included. I think that's what sets us on this journey.
I will agree with you in broad strokes that is a shared characteristic of this group of Beret scholars. And I'll also say that I sat for many, many hours in the same room with you in many different settings throughout the year, whether it was our morning program, Chinese class.
Right? I love Chinese class. I'm actually still learning Chinese.
What's that?
I'm still learning Chinese. I'm actually starting.
Oh, that's great.
Classes.
Oh, that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. But I recall all of the curiosity that you brought into that classroom. And then also on fellowship, I'm thinking specifically about our fellowship in Rwanda. And I have just so many memories of I would look over at you and you would have this intense, I'd look around the room a lot. Just to see how, who all is engaged and how folks are engaging. And there was this focus about you. and you would ask questions that were so on point and right in the conversation. And I feel like the folks who were presenting were always really impressed with the questions that you asked because you were paying such close attention. So it isn't just curiosity. It's also a level of focus and engagement that I have found to be a defining characteristic of you. Does that resonate to you?
Definitely. I think that was one of my goals for my this entire journey that we took, was to really focus on learning. And I think every time I listen to a speaker, I think that might have also come through in how I presented myself, but also really forcing myself to ask a question. I think that I made it a goal for myself to ask at least one question after each speaker, after each meeting. And I think that's what pushed me to focus more on what they're talking about. I think curiosity is also a lot of it is about effort. You have to put a lot of effort to be interested, to try to understand. And I think it's something that also doesn't, in some cases, but in my experience, doesn't come as naturally, but it's about putting in that effort to learn more and to ask questions, because asking questions is actually really hard. Asking good questions is incredibly hard. But I think a big part of curiosity and is forcing yourself and really pushing that focus.
Well, I guess if it's possible for me to be even more amazed at your curiosity, I am now, because I didn't realize how much intention and focus you had brought to it. You know, just from the outside, it just seemed so natural, just like naturally a part of who you are. So congratulations to you on having an intention and on following through with that throughout the entire year.
Thank you. I think that was one of my biggest learnings throughout the year. I think I wrote it down on a piece of paper during morning program back in the first month when we were in New York. Mm-hmm. With a lot of exclamation marks at the end, that I cannot ask questions because I didn't know how to. And I think making that intention to asking questions, to really being interested in what the speaker is saying, is also something that I actually use now in my day-to-day.
Oh, I love it. That's wonderful, wonderful to hear. The next question I have for you is actually, I kind of want to rewind a little bit, go back in time to before you became a Beret Scholar, and wondering what you can share with us about your background, and then also how you became aware of Beret Scholars, why you decided you wanted to join the program. If you could just tell us that story, that'd be great. Yeah,
definitely. I think a lot of our Beret experience was sharing those stories and all the lucky accidents that I guess put us in that room together. And for me, it was truly lucky, because I did not consider gap year a possibility beforehand, and I was really focused on my academics, and going to university faster was my only dream. Even when other people were considering doing something else or taking a break, I knew and I was convinced that academics and university is what I wanted and what I wanted to do with my life next. And I think only after that opportunity just fell into my lap and I was sitting looking at this amazing opportunity, I started thinking about it. I guess my story of finding Beret is not as romantic as other people's might, but I came across an ad online. Essentially, I Googled Beret Scholars, and that's how I discovered the program, and applied, and completely forgot that I even did that. And only after I received that opportunity in my inbox, I actually was biking at the time, somewhere in the mountains. I had to stop. It was getting dark really fast, but I had to stop, sit down, and that was just a little bit of a shock to me because I don't think I took, when I was applying, I didn't think about it seriously, but when it was all possible and I was looking at it and all I had to do is to agree, that's where I started thinking about it, that maybe that's the next step for me. And I'm a big believer in fate. So I think when and intuition, so I think that when that opportunity was available to me, I think that's why I took it. But again, this was not something I even considered. And but when it appeared in my inbox, I think it really all fell into place and it was natural. And I feel like I made that 180 switch from really wanted to go to university, not considering any other alternative, to being dead set on this crazy journey in a matter of an instant, I feel like.
What do you think it is about? Because it's not frequent to hear when you're on a path, there's a lot of reasons for being on a path. And it sounds like here you were on this path of university, but it all happened quite suddenly, that then you were suddenly on a different path. And I'm wondering if you're able to characterize what it is that made that switch so kind of instantaneous.
Yeah. A little bit of a disclaimer. I'm a person who loves plans, who cannot live without a plan, a to-do list, and I need to know what will happen in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. So this was very uncharacteristic for me, which made me even more surprised that I immediately thought this was a great idea, and now this is what I want to do. I think I've never thought about an opportunity like this because I never really thought what I could gain from it. There were a really clear benefit from academics and university. Mm-hmm. And it was laid out in the syllabus, and there was a promise at the end that you will receive a diploma and you will be able to get a job with it easily. So there was a very clear benefit from it. But I don't think I've ever thought, what kind of benefits can alternative paths have? And I think what was instantaneous for me is that I realized that learning is not limited to what the syllabus says, and it feels like, and I think it took me a lot longer to come to that thought, but when I received that acceptance in the inbox, I think that's where the thought sort of surfaced. But I think it took me a lot longer to process and think, somewhat unconsciously or subconsciously, that there's all types of learning, and when it's not as obvious and not written down neatly for you on a piece of paper as it would be in traditional academic settings, doesn't make it any less valuable. And I think maybe it took me a little bit of time to mature and to really come to that conclusion. But in that moment, it was it just hit, and it was really natural for me to make that decision.
Great. I mean, I completely relate to everything that you just said as an experiential educator, as somebody who's spent most of my career inside of universities, but also kind of at the fringes of universities, because I love classroom learning, and it's also insufficient in my view, to create the kinds of truly global citizens that
yes.
The universities claim to be producing. It's also what drew me to Bray as well. So I appreciate you sharing all of that, because everything you said makes complete sense to me.
I'm glad.
So continuing on this topic of learning, we talk about learning a lot as an important outcome of a program like Beret. And we talk a little bit less about unlearning. And I'm wondering if you may have had to do any, or I don't know if had to is the right way to put it, but if you maybe underwent any unlearning on the Beret program, if you'd share about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the unlearning that happened was in the way um, it's going to sound very vague, but in the way I exist and present myself in the world. I think when you exist in one society, in one context, in one country, in one language, even, there's very little risk of behaving, maybe, I wouldn't say inappropriately, but in a way that might be unconventional for this culture. So what I mean by that is that I notice that when I'm in one country and I'm talking with the similar people, we're talking about similar things. We're behaving in similar, predictable ways. And I think unlearning that mold and unlearning that pattern of presenting myself, behaving, speaking, doing everything was definitely a big unlearning process that happened for me during Beret. What I mean by that is whenever you talk with different people in a different language, in a different context, in a different culture, you are forced to step out of that mold, of that pattern of behavior and pattern of presenting yourself. And I think at the beginning, I was doing it, I was forcing it, meaning that I thought that what I did back home all the time, so sort of that Eastern European coldness and I guess not introversion to a certain sense. I think I thought that changing that pattern of behavior was me acting somewhat unnaturally and forcing a different pattern of behavior or personality on me when I was talking, for example, to people from different cultures. But with time, I realized that there's actually a big part of my personality that I feel like I didn't get a chance to discover before. So for me, what I thought was learning to exist in different cultures ended up being me unlearning that pattern of behavior and presenting myself, speaking, which was a realization that came to me quite late into the program, but I'm glad that I sat down and gave it a thought, that actually there's a lot more to my personality and to my the way I want the world to see me than just that one mold, that one society. And kind of being exposed to people who are different helped me realize that that I can also be like them. And yeah.
Such a beautiful story. I feel like it's one of the magical aspects when you have people like you who are driven by curiosity in a lot of ways. You just want to learn, you want to discover. And then you're in an environment with as much diversity as we had. And when I say diversity, I mean there's so many ways in which this is an incredibly diverse group. In this case, the cultural diversity, that when there's exposure, when you get exposed to all of these different ways of being a human, we can get in touch with aspects of ourselves that we maybe either didn't know existed or that were important to us, and we didn't even know it. And it sounds to me, from what you're describing, that does that sound like an accurate reflection of what you went through?
Exactly. And I think there's many beautiful examples of it when I started meeting people who are more open and extroverted, who are not afraid, for example, to ask waiters in restaurants about the history of the city. For me, that was something unheard of. But when I met people who are doing it openly, I also realized that, hey, I also enjoy doing that and talking with people, talking with strangers, and sharing knowledge and having this interaction. So I think there's a lot we can learn about ourselves and pieces of our self or personality that we can discover from interacting with people who are drastically different in some way or the other.
Well, the next question I have for you, I mean, I feel like you've already talked about it. So if there isn't anything front of mind, we can move on to the next one. But I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway, which is, as you've been reflecting on your experience with Beret, what would you say are some of the main ways in which you've grown?
I think that's something I reflect on constantly, and I think the learning and growing shows up in so many different ways, unexpectedly. Even some of it shows instantly, some of it only after a few months, and I'm sure I'll keep discovering and seeing new ways in which I've grown from that experience in the future. But I think one great example of that would be is definitely just being open in general. And I think that's something that resonated not only with me, but also with a lot of my peers. Just being, I think, even though I came into the program curious and open, I think I had a lot of reservations about which questions are okay to ask, which questions are not okay to ask, which, again, a lot of it comes down to culture, but also to the difference between how I interact with people now and before Beret. I think Beret, this entire program and experience where you're put in these situations where you have to take a lot of responsibility, where you have to look for solutions fast, when there's a lot of unpredictability that is related to, I guess, just not only traveling, but also constantly interacting with people from different cultures, a lot of unpredictability. And I think what I've definitely learned, and one direction in which I've grown, is being a lot more accepting and even welcoming that unpredictability and uncertainty, and being open to things like rejection or asking for things and not being afraid of receiving a rejection. And that manifests itself in a lot of ways, from reaching out to a mentor who seems too big to reply, or talking to people who seem too important to be talking to you back. So just some of the few examples that I've noticed recently, something I could not even imagine doing before the program. It puts, in general, I think that I had many conversations about it, but the program this put you in situations where you've had to fend for yourself and advocate for yourself. I think many of kids our age or young people are not required and are not put in these positions when they're forced to do that. So I think learning that skill early on, like we did, was, to me at least, incredibly valuable. And it's also somewhat empowering because I advocated for myself and I've gotten myself out of situations that I thought I would not be able to deal with ever. I think one very good example of it is when I got my passport. My passport was lost in New York City. UPS lost my passport, and I was driving around, went to 3 different warehouses, and cried in front of so many people. But and I spent the whole day trying to get it back. And some worker at one of the warehouses had a friend who was working at another warehouse in a completely different part of the state. So that I had to drive to last minute to get it back. But even the next day, I was sitting on an airplane with my passport in hand, luckily, reflecting on it and thinking, how was I even able to do that? And I think even though it was scary in the moment, I now know that I can deal with situations like that. And I think that gives me a lot of courage moving forward. I think that's a great example. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Juliana.
No worries. I just want to say that's one of the probably biggest directions I've grown in during the program.
I either didn't know or have forgotten about you. Lost touch with your passport when we were in New York City. I would imagine, well, I'll ask you, has it also increased your confidence?
Oh, definitely. I think confidence is, I think I would describe myself as somewhat shy and introverted before the program, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I think that was partly because I just didn't know what I was capable of, and didn't really have an opportunity to test it and put myself in these stressful situations where I was supposed to train or be more courageous to succeed. And I think some of the situations, like the passport story, were negative. Some of them were positive, but I think all of them showed me maybe more courageous and more confident moving forward.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm getting a sense of just so much growth in so many aspects of who you are. I'm wondering what the re-entry process might have been like for you after the program. I mean, I think we had one session, I think it was in Beijing. One of the ways in which, because I've had a lot of experience at the university level with study abroad programs, and one of the ways in which we often fail our students is not offering resources for re-entry. And it's just, there's lots of reasons for that. But it's an overlooked area because, I think a well-constructed and well-run abroad experience results in significant personal growth. And then the student goes home or, to some environment that's more familiar to them from before. Mm-hmm. And then there can be challenges. And what I'm curious to hear from you is what the re-entry process was like. Because, I'm thinking about, Juliana in early September 2024, and then Juliana in late May 2025. Right? So not the same person.
Definitely.
What can you tell us about what the re-entry process was like for you, and maybe still is like? I don't know. Yes, it's many months later, and this is early January 2026. But I'm going to stop talking and love to hear what you have to say about it.
Definitely. I'm going to be very honest. It was not easy, and despite all the conversations we've had about how we're going to come back to our lives and how tough it's going to be, and even the sessions that was hosted in Beijing, I think none of us really imagined, myself included, how tough it would be. Definitely staying in touch was helpful. We definitely were able to relate to each other. And despite the fact that some students never re-entered and just kept traveling, some were faced with a situation where they went from seeing so much of the world to seeing only their city. I think we've all just trying to find a balance that works for us. And for me, that was a very long process. I think the re-entry took me a lot longer than I expected. But I went from, I think the lowest low was definitely right after the program ended. I think after that initial, I was definitely missing home, but after that initial week or so wore off, I realized that this is it. This is my life now. And after seeing the world and having such a dynamic and a life full of activities and friends and so many emotions, a more stable period of my life was starting. And I think really accepting that was really hard. And it took me only a month to accept that. I think there was a point where I thought, this is my life now. I'm going to do this forever. No more career goals. I think I seriously considered that option. No more career goals, no more university. I think this is what I'm going to do. Because I knew that the change back into my old routine would be incredibly hard. So I might as well avoid that entirely. But I think as more time passed, I had to seriously sit down and think, what has changed in me, about me, that will inform my life into the future. My life cannot stay forever in this dynamic process of traveling. This is unsustainable, nor can it be the same as it was before the program. It was something completely new, and I just had to figure out how to adjust my life and my habits, my activities, in this new way that acknowledges the transformative process that I went through throughout the 9 months that we spent traveling. And I think there's a lot to say about the things that I've started doing. A lot of different language courses that I took up, for example, just to stay connected to the places that I visited by learning their culture. I think this is something that I've been missing as we were traveling. Too much moving around and too little actually learning about the place. So I think I started looking for these opportunities that I was missing, for example, such as learning about culture and language, that I finally had time and energy and space for once I came back home. Yeah.
Wow, I want to dig a little deeper on one aspect of what you went through during your reentry process. And that is, you talked about the lowest of the low was right after the program. You were going through experiencing what sounds like some difficult feelings. Mm-hmm. What I'm wondering is in the moments when it was most difficult, do you recall what strategies you might have used to get through?
Yeah. I think the biggest strategy, I'm a big fan of writing. I write a lot. I write about everything, my feelings, my experiences. And I think when the negative feelings are in my head, it's really hard to make sense of them. They're in a big knot. There's chaos happening. And sometimes I just have this feeling that these feelings are negative. And that's the only thing I'm processing. So what really helped me to untangle that massive knot of seemingly negative feelings is to write it down. and also have so many conversations with both peers who are going through a similar process, but also my family and friends back home, having these conversations and being really open about what I feel. I think I'm really grateful to my friends and family who didn't made me feel like I was ungrateful for the life that I have. I think that was one of the fears that I had before talking to them, is that I had this wonderful life back home, similar to what they're living. And now I went through this amazing experience and I come back and I'm so unhappy. I think what I was afraid of is by complaining about this life that we're living, I'm going to offend them, essentially telling them that how they're living is bad and it's not enough. Your life is boring. I want to do something else. But I think I'm really grateful for my family and friends who took the time at least to listen and to understand that this is not what my intentions are. And again, I still have a lot of essays that I wrote about my feelings back then that I revisit and think about how if I read the same essay right now, I think I've understood it. I would understand it a lot differently than I did back then, just because I went through this whole process of turning these negative feelings into positive ones. And even reading the same content, I interpret it completely differently.
Speaking of writing, sounds like a really powerful strategy that you used. It has me thinking about Étoile.
Yeah.
And your involvement with Étoile. So for our listeners, Étoile was a magazine that Juliana and several other students decided to create and publish several issues of during Beret's first year. And I think not only in the process, not only offering, well, it was a beautiful project. I'll just say that. And in so many ways, I won't go into all the details about why. I'm personally grateful to you and to others for having created this. I was going to say artifact, which seems a little funny because yes, it's an artifact. It now exists for posterity, which is wonderful. And then it's so much more than an artifact as well. So with apologies for the limited terminology, what can you share with our listeners about how the project came about and about your role in it and what it meant to you? Anything that you'd like to share about Étoile?
Definitely. I will not take the credit for the idea. I want to say that Milena, a wonderful Beret scholar from Germany, she was the one who came up with the idea and rallied everyone. And I was so happy to get on board. And that's where we started co-creating it. And I guess the thoughts that I was having when joining and starting up this project, I think I mentioned that earlier, that I really didn't have didn't have an opportunity to learn more about the context of different places I was visiting. We were moving so fast from place to place. I didn't have an opportunity to learn about political, cultural context of a certain country or region. And I think we all were in agreement that this was not only an opportunity for us to produce something, to make some use out of our learning, but also encourage us to fill in the gaps in what we know about certain regions. It really reminds me of, I read a lot, and there's this great strategy that helps me remember what I read and remember the content of books and articles that I read. And the thing that worked the best for me is producing something out of that knowledge, out of that information I learned from books and articles. And I think I have applied a similar mentality to the process of traveling itself. So I'm like a sponge absorbing all this information from morning programs, from visiting different companies, museums, talking with strangers on the street. I think it was just so much information bombarding me all the time that I think we all felt the need, myself included, to find a way to structure it and really consolidate that information, but also produce something out of it. I think we really, really all wanted to not let it be a passive process of absorbing information, but we really thought that all we were learning about was worth sharing. And I think that's one of the main ideas that pushed us to create and continue creating Étoile for the entire second semester.
I loved the different kind of features you had in there as well. I think an interview with somebody from the host culture was an important part of it. You would usually always profile a staff member as well. It was just beautiful. I mean, like, and physically a beautiful, like the actual holding it in your hands and looking at it. I mean, so much care and attention went into it. So I'd like to personally thank you as well for everything that you did to make it happen.
It was a logistical nightmare to managing so many print shops and talking with
you're
people.
Doing it in a different culture every month.
Yeah,
and
that was
really
a lot.
incredible.
But it's a really, I think we all glad we did it. And again, that's one other way in which I've learned to be more courageous, and now I know I'm capable of doing something like that. So it makes me more confident doing hard international projects like that in the future. One other thing that I wanted to mention, that you mentioned doing interviews with our scholars from the host cultures and also staff members. I think we were talking a lot about how these interviews really also brought us as a community closer. I think there were so many people and experiences that we constantly felt that we were missing out on, that we forgot to engage with our own community, with our peers, with other staff members, and having these deep conversations. So definitely it was an amazing excuse to spend more time with our group members. Yeah.
The next question I have for you is, again, something you've already gotten into a little bit here. See if you have any additional thoughts on it, which is 100 or so peers from 40 or so countries over the course of 8.5 months. You must know a thing or two about communicating and collaborating across cultures. Have you got any insights that you'd be willing to share with our listeners? In this realm?
Yeah, that's actually, I think that my answer would connect really well to what I said earlier about stepping out of a certain mold of how I'm presenting myself and behaving. I think coming back to that mold and seeing it clearly for what it is right now, back in my original culture, I think it made me realize that even my personal culture changed a lot, and I don't think I can step back into that mold again. What I mean by that is, by engaging with so many people who have different patterns of behavior, different traditions, different cultures, first and foremost, I was definitely less afraid of making certain faux pas when it comes to engaging with different cultures. I think just because we made so many of them, we were a lot more open to explaining why is it like this, why I'm doing certain things a certain way. And I think that's also an amazing lesson for the future when I'm engaging with people from different cultures. I think one big realization that I had is that people are actually glad to explain certain cultural aspects. And I think also this experience made me a lot less afraid of making those mistakes and learning from them, and really being open to learning and not being embarrassed of making certain mistakes. That's definitely one thing. And the second thing is I noticed that while we existed in this space of people from different cultures, religions, and traditions, we have created maybe a certain hybrid culture that was an amalgamation, at least for a short period of time, of so many cultures and traditions. We would, for example, celebrate Christmas for 2 times. So for the Orthodox and Catholic Church, for example, we would do solidarity Ramadan with the Muslims in the group, and we would just create this space where we would use words from a lot of different languages to relate to our peers. And by the end, I've noticed that we were very different, but at the same time, when we existed in that space, we created this very unique culture that consists of all the cultures. And I think that was something beautiful. And I think I will forever chase that community and chase that feeling and of being really understood and welcome no matter what my background that I came in with.
One way that I have thought about this, and I'm thinking about it now, is on the one hand, okay, the bar is really high. Like you all, the community that you created and the way that you related to each other and cared for one another and loved one another throughout this year sets a really high bar. And one way to look at it is, oh, shoot, well, how am I ever going to meet that again? And then another way to think about it is, well, what a thing to shoot for. And that's what I hear you say here is like, you want to chase that. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of put that out there as an exciting possibility for whoever is fortunate enough to encounter you in the future.
I think that's a wonderful conclusion. Yeah.
Can you share with us what's next for you, Juliana?
Definitely. I think coming back to the process of readjustment, I think I was avoiding that topic, but now that we're talking about what's next, I think it's the best time to talk about it. Not only did I change in terms of the way I interact with people and present myself, but also in what goals I set for myself for the future. I think seeing so many contexts, talking to so many people living in those very vastly different conditions and contexts definitely made me realize how important it is to not only understand but also support people in different communities. So my biggest switch in terms of my career goals and goals in life in general was really focusing on politics and focusing on I guess improving policies to help communities all over the world. I think this is something that was not as visible and didn't seem as urgent in my community. So I've opted for paths that were more intellectually appealing to me, like science and physics specifically. But I think coming back from this experience, I not only now know that there are places where the context is completely different, but also I became more aware of the problems and issues that I have in my community that I was so blind to earlier. And I think seeing it so clearly is what made me make that massive switch in my career goals. I took up my I took my career in politics seriously, and I currently work for a party at the European Parliament called Volt, with which I actually am an expert and the leader of the community on integration and migration, which means I actually get to work with local offices in European cities and municipalities to help improve their migration and integration policies for newcomers. So I actually get to work with my community and improve conditions for the group that, in my opinion, is most vulnerable. I also have been a migrant so many times, and I think I resonate with that a lot. And this is definitely a direction I intend on moving in the future. And this is something I am really grateful to Beret, to this experience for, just helping me realize how important that is and how much good I can do in this area.
It's amazing that you so quickly have been able to move into a professional role.
I think
in this work that
when
you
you
feel
set your mind on
about.
something. Oh, sorry.
No,
for
please, no,
interrupting
go
you.
ahead. No. Please continue.
I think I was really, I knew what I wanted to do, and I think when you set your mind on something and you have that post-beret confidence about your abilities, I think that's where the most amazing things happen. And I'm really, really happy that I actually can work in a domain that helps people so much.
So before Beret, you were on this university track, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And then Beret happened, and we call it a gap year, meaning the gap between high school and university. But it sounds to me like that's not what's happening with you. Is that accurate?
I would say so to a certain degree. I still see immense value in academic settings and education. So I do study. However, I think studying took a backseat because I realized just how much more learning I can get out of working on the ground and talking to people and working on real projects like we did with the magazine Étoile, or with various other projects that we've managed to do during that gap year. I think as much as I value academic learning, I still I study, but I study hybrids because I wouldn't be able to study otherwise. But I think realizing just how much more I can get out of learning on the ground and working on real projects. Definitely the learning curve is a lot steeper.
Yes.
No one is holding your hand and walking you through those academic steps.
And I would imagine that you can you see the impact of your actions more readily as well than in the classroom, do you feel like?
Definitely. I think that's a big motivator. Working with local offices and municipalities all over Europe is something that brings immediate, not immediate, but very tangible and visible impact. We work with politicians who are trying to create a difference in their community and getting their feedback and seeing how, the legislative process, implementing policies is a very long process, but nevertheless, I know that these policies will sooner or later impact someone's life in a very tangible way. I think that's something that it's really, really hard to achieve in an academic setting.
And from what I hear, you're working on changing systems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So long-term impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think broken systems and systems that can be improved is something that I've seen so many times in different contexts, countries, cities throughout Beret. And I think asking a lot of questions about these contexts and cities made me see those different gaps, which made me more perceptive towards the gaps in my own context, in my own system that I live in.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see how that all unfolds for you in the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Have you got just a couple more minutes for one final question?
Definitely.
Okay. So we live in a world that's full of suffering, and a lot of that suffering is caused by humans. And it can be really easy to feel overwhelmed and even to lose hope. Have you got any words to encourage us about the future?
Definitely. I think what people forget a lot of the times is that there's a lot of man-made suffering, but almost all the progress that we've made as a civilization, as a society, is also man-made. And I think we as humans have a tendency to focus on the bad things. But we have to remember that all the good things that happen in the world are also done by humans. And I think the easiest way to see that is really become a part of doing good, of finding your own way to impact the people around you or society on a more global scale. And I think once you start doing that, it sounds incredibly cheesy, but I think doing something that brings some positive, tangible impact lets you see that I can do good and people in general can do good things and make someone's life or something in this world better. And I think it's definitely very important to acknowledge all of the suffering and bad things that happen in the world and acknowledge the fact that they are man-made. But what I think is more important is to not forget that we are also responsible for all the good things that happen in the world.
Not at all cheesy from my own perspective. That's real and it's practical and it's true. And I really appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's also one of the post-Beret scholars learnings for me. So.
Great. Juliana, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for all your thoughtful questions. It was a pleasure discussing them with you.
Oh, my pleasure too.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Juliana. If you did, please tell at least one friend about it. Give us a 5-star rating and follow the podcast. That will help others find us. Until next time, let's keep our heads clear and our hearts open.